My name is Joe Peroni, and this is the Rise Above Project. And today I want to talk about how to build an emotional bridge with your partner. As a marriage and family therapist, when I go to clubs and concerts, I look at all of these people and I wonder that when they're with their partner, do they know how to build an emotional bridge whenever they get into an argument or a disagreement? Because if you know how to build an emotional bridge, it never really matters if you get into an argument or a disagreement. It can actually bring you closer because you know that you can disagree with each other, but it can bring you closer and it doesn't have to separate you as long as people can listen to each other and be respectful of each other. Also, as a marriage and family therapist, this happens all the time. I get a couple that comes in and they sit down on the couch and you get one person that's all the way at the other side of the couch. And the other person, of course, sits all the way at the other end. And they couldn't be any further apart. And if I could open up a door in some way, they would probably sit out in the hallway if they could. They just have had enough of each other. But that's not really true because they wouldn't be there if they didn't want to actually put the relationship together. So what is going on here? Well, we all get feelings of anger, we get hurt, we get triggered, where we feel disrespected, we're maybe not getting our needs met, or we feel a little bit helpless because we can't seem to meet our partner's needs. We're not being seen, we're not being heard. And of course, in a romantic relationship, the stakes are very high. You have all of your emotional capital invested in this, and when there's a problem, not everybody, but most people have an incredibly fierce reaction to this. So I've broken this down into two major camps. So the one camp that I have is a person that typically is going to break walls when there's disagreements and they're not getting their needs met. A person who breaks walls is a person who tends to scream, they yell, they tend to get aggressive, they condemn their partner, they probably criticize their partner, they put them down, they blame, they accuse. And what's really going on here? Well, are they a bad person? Well, they don't have to be, right? What they're doing is that they're in pain, they're hurt, and they don't know what to do with this. They don't know how to communicate. And so their version of communicating is to do whatever possible that they think that they know, and they're trying to make their partner change. And if the partner doesn't change in the way that they want, they tend to get even more loud and more aggressive, and they do more of the same. And of course, that doesn't work. So that's the first person we have, is the break walls person. They're trying to break down the other person's walls. The second person is a person who wants to build walls. And so what they do is they tend to get quiet, they don't verbalize their needs, they try to create distance, they try not to escalate the situation. So if you talk to a person like this, they'll say they're trying to get quiet so the conversation comes to an end, right? So they don't want to say much because they figure that it's just going to make the conversation get even more out of control, or it's going to increase the length of a conversation that's not actually working in the first place. But actually, what's also going on there is that they're trying not to escalate themselves. So they're trying to maintain their composure because that's the best technique that they know. Also, a person who's trying to build walls, you'll see this with people who try to stay busy all the time, whether it's work or their hobbies. I mean, we got 24 hours in a day, so what they'll try to do is they'll limit the amount of exposure to their partner if things aren't going well. And they figured that in some way, shape, or form, this will lower the temperature, so to speak, in that relationship, and that will help somehow. And of course, that doesn't work. And if you're on both sides of this, if you're a person who builds walls, the other person is going to try to break the walls even more, and vice versa. So what's the solution to this? The solution to this is to build an emotional bridge. And in order to do that, you have to start with yourself. So what you'll need to do is you need to take responsibility for yourself and your actions and your feelings and emotions. From there, we want to be able to have the ability to lead with your fear. And that's a difficult thing to do, but we're going to need to work on that. Now, once you lead with your fear, then you have to turn all of your complaints into an actual request to your partner. So how do we do this? Well, before the show today, I wrote out an example of what to do because I want to make sure it's pretty exact. So I don't want to make any mistakes for you people out there that might be listening. So I have an example of a person who tries to build walls and what they might say to build an emotional bridge. So here's the example. I want to start by saying that I take full responsibility for how I've been reacting lately. I fear that I've been too distant and that I might be affecting our connection. Instead of me just feeling frustrated and wanting to be by myself, I realize that I need to express myself better to you. So can we set aside some time this week to talk openly about our feelings? I really want to understand your perspectives, and I also want to be able to share mine in a way that brings us closer together. So to some people out there, it might sound a little too formal, and it might be. But the point is that what's going on here? Well, it's demonstrating accountability and vulnerability, which can lead to more intimacy. And there's also a constructive way here to address the concerns while trying to create a deeper emotional connection. So that's what's going on there. Instead of the person just being quiet, they're actually saying why they're being quiet, and they're taking the fear and the vulnerability on themselves, but they're not attacking their partner. So the second one would be for a person who is trying to break walls. So here's my example for that. I want to start by saying that I take full responsibility for my anger and how it's come out in our conversations lately. I know you haven't seen the best of me. I fear that my frustration is actually coming from a place of deep love, though. And it's also coming from my deep concern for you. It worries me to see that you are not taking care of your health, and I've noticed that you've been drinking too much. I'm scared that if things continue this way, I might lose you, and I don't want to imagine living a life without you. Can we talk about how we can support each other in making both of ourselves healthier and how we can make healthy choices together? I really want us to be happy and healthy together. So again, what does this do? It conveys accountability, it reveals the underlying fear, and it transforms the complaint into a constructive request. And they're also looking for collaboration and support. So I actually do see this a lot with clients. Like somebody might be drinking too much, they're doing this or that, and typically a person will go straight to the breaking walls. I don't like what you're doing, you can't be doing this, you're an alcoholic, you need help, this kind of thing. And all this does is make the other person defensive, and they build a wall. So, and what I'm saying here is, again, if we lead with the fear and say, I'm concerned that if it continues down this road, you're going to be so unhealthy or you might die, and I'm going to have to live a life without you. And I don't want to have to do that. So as you can see, when we build an emotional bridge, it would be very difficult for somebody to have a triggered response to a person who's leading with the fear and taking responsibility. So hopefully that was valuable today for you in some way. My name is Joe Peroni.